This is the big news, ladies and gentlemen. Mahmoud Khalil. He was a green card holder, permanent resident of the United States. He had his visa revoked. He is being deported. A judge has blocked his deportation temporarily. And they're saying it's because he was aligned with Hamas. He was supporting Hamas-aligned activities. And now NPR reports green card holders' rights in spotlight after arrest of pro-Palestinian activist. What's really fascinating about this story is how the story itself largely doesn't matter to Democrats here's the funny thing. The run-of-the-mill Democrats are angry over this because it's an immigration question. The far-left Democrats are angry because this guy was anti-Israel. The middle-of-the-road Republicans are saying, you can do this. You have no right to be here. And then the Jewanon and it's a distinction, and the anti-Israel right side are angry over this, and they're claiming it's free speech grounds. I think principally Israel is the issue for a lot of these people, but there is an interesting question being brought up as Trump's administration is seeking to deport a permanent resident who is married to an American in this country. So what do you think?
He's calling for violence. So
we have quotes where he called for violence.
There were quotes where he was saying we should attack the police and things like that.
Were those his quotes, or were they part of the Columbia University apartheid divest?
The way that I understand it, they were his quotes. I could be misinformed.
I was looking for a video of him specifically, and I didn't find that stuff.
But again, what's stopping it?
I know that
federal judge.
I know people
Right.
have been saying he has quotes like "We will resist the police" and things like that, or something to that effect. I don't know exactly what he said specifically. That could be described as threats of violence or anything like that.
Well, Columbia University Apartheid Divest is a really radical group, and they're the ones who were staging the takeover of Hamilton Hall last year, the takeover of the Quad. I think it was almost 2 weeks that they had
took over buildings.
Hamilton Hall. They renamed it Hind Hall after a girl that was killed in Gaza. They were very specific about that. But they took over the Quad for like 2 weeks. They recently took over Barnard's Milstein Library, which is like this really storied historic library on the campus that is shared by both. It's shared by both universities. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty shocking group. They have really disgusting views. They're very big Jew haters. They also are very big haters of the West, of America. They've also done this crazy thing where they compare the war in Gaza and Israel to Columbia's real estate deals in Manhattan on the Morningside campus. They say that Columbia is an occupier of, Morningside, this part of Manhattan, and all of this stuff, which is absolutely ridiculous. And that's how they link that up all together. It's not a good group. They have really bad ideas, and they had last year, the daughter of Ilhan Omar was out there because she was a Barnard student. She was protesting, and Ilhan Omar was out there as well. You also had Congressman Brandon Gill today saying that he'd think the country would be better off if Ilhan Omar was deported, which made me look up how you could deport a naturalized citizen.
Well, real quick, it is funny, but most people don't realize that Ilhan Omar has a 20-something-year-old daughter.
Yeah, and she was in Barnard. I know she got suspended. I don't know if she got expelled. She was certainly locked out of her housing for a good while and made a whole stink about being unhoused.
Unhoused. Yeah. Well, so I asked my Twitter, my ex-followers, should non-citizens in the U.S. be allowed to stage protests against U.S. policy? 85.8% said no. 14.2% said yes. Out of 20,801 votes. It's been up for 2 hours.
I think that is actually a violation of the green card. Like the green card requirements, it has responsibilities of the government and responsibilities as a permanent resident. And one of the responsibilities as a permanent resident, it says required to obey all laws of the United States and localities, and also expected to support the democratic form of government, not including voting, which you can't do.
Yeah,
I'm totally fine with his visa being revoked and him being deported.
Me too. Absolutely. I mean, sorry about your luck, bud. We got rules around here. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, these protests were taking over buildings. We're not talking about a guy standing on a street corner waving a little sign that says "Free Palestine." We're talking about a guy who was an organizer of a protest, who was giving speeches, acting
Giving
as a
press
spokesperson.
conferences. He was
press
giving
conferences,
press conferences.
and they physically took over buildings and occupied spaces unlawfully. And people don't. I think the issue is for a lot of people, they don't remember the videos that came out of this, where Jewish students were attacked.
Yeah.
One incident where a guy, I think it was a guy or woman, they were wearing a Star of David, and they were walking around. I think it was Columbia. And then people just formed a line, linked arms, and pushed them out.
Yeah, they refused to let them into the encampment. They also refused to let people go to class. Recently, they say that Khalil was part of a group of students. I don't know if this is true, but they say that he was part of a group of students that was disrupting classes and distributing like Hamas leaflets in classes. That's something.
He was Hamas leaflets?
It was like Al-Aqsa flood stuff.
Which is pro Hamas.
Al-Aqsa flood, that's what they call the Al-Aqsa is like the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like basically, pro Hamas.
Well, there's a
type
big
of
question.
stuff.
Basically, is not
Right. So
is-
these are the questions, and this is why I think that it would be good to have a hearing. I want to hear all the evidence against this
No,
guy.
I'd love to have a
and I'd
congressional
love
hearing
to
on this.
also, if this is the first guy who's being deported, who has a green card, and he's being, charged. He hasn't been charged with anything yet. He hasn't been investigated for any crimes, and that's something too. I was reading the Free Press report this morning.
So what?
And they were saying that that nobody in the administration says that he's done anything illegal.
So what?
Well, so it's interesting.
And so what to
like,
you?
if
I
this
mean,
is
so
gonna
what in
be
general?
if this is going to be the blueprint of how people with green cards are deported, I want every I dotted and T crossed,
look,
so that we know that in every case this is being done appropriately.
Have an appropriate procedure.
Yes.
Make sure that they
Do it
just like you said,
lawfully,
do it
yes.
lawfully, and then ship them all out. Like
Sure.
if you've
And then
broken
use
the
that-
law, beat it.
This is how we
but
protect
yes, that's the
Americans.
point
is
that
by
I'm
use
following
that as
the
case.
law.
Use that as case law. Then let's have the
Yes.
first one.
Let's have some case.
and then we'll have
let's do
some
it right.
case law.
I disagree. The law clearly states, and if you want to change it, we can change it. There is no judicial review. The State Department can kick out any green card holder whenever they want.
At any time.
If
Anytime.
it's lawful,
No. There's no question of what lawful is because there's no judicial review.
then,
The State Department literally.
then it is lawful.
Right, then that means always, at any time, for any reason, it's lawful.
So if
there's no question.
all I'm saying is like if your information is accurate and is lawful, then ship them out.
So here we
Beat
have.
it.
They don't even have an appellate process, right?
There's none.
We were talking about it earlier.
Right, I've pulled it up. This is section
no appellate
221, subsection I. After the issuance of a visa or other documentation to any alien, the consular officer or the Secretary of State may at any time, in his discretion, revoke such visa or other documentation, period.
Look, these are.
Let me read this.
Yeah.
General and such revocation shall invalidate the visa or other documentation from the date of issuance, provided that carriers or transportation companies and masters, commanding officers, agents, owners, charterers, or consignees shall not be penalized under Section 273B for action taken in reliance on such visa or other documentation, which this is an aside to it. They go on to say there shall be no means of judicial review of a revocation under this subsection, except in the context of a removal proceeding, if such revocation provides the sole ground for removal under Section 237, A1B, blah, 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 which is an aside. Basically, if the Secretary of State says, we are taking back your visa, they can do it.
Period.
They don't need a reason. There's no appeals. There's no court. There's no habeas corpus judicial review. It is, you are a visa holder. You are no longer a visa holder. You are now here unlawfully and can be deported.
Aren't there extra protections for green card holders?
This literally says, and I quote, the Secretary of State at his own discretion can revoke such visa or other documentation. That's it.
Yep.
And notice of such revocation, that's the important point, shall be communicated to the Attorney General, and such revocation shall invalidate the visa or the documentation from the date of issuance. So notice, you know what that means? It means the moment Marco Rubio says, we have revoked your visa, it's gone.
Done.
What did you say about judicial review?
So
There
it
is
says
none.
here,
There is none.
there shall be no means of judicial review, including review pursuant to Section 2241 of Title 28 U.S. Code,
Except in the
or
context of a
any
removal
other
proceeding.
or any other habeas corpus provision and sections 1361, 1651 of such title. It says there shall be no judicial review of a revocation under this subsection, except in the context of a removal proceeding if such revocation provides the sole ground for removal under section
So it sounds like that would
237A1B.
be the case here, and there would be a removal proceeding, and we're going to see a hearing tomorrow.
No. You misunderstand a specific subsection. So let me pull up section 237 if we want to address the specific criteria by which they would have a proceeding. And I believe it's relating to when other. Oh man, this jumps so far.
It's huge. It's a huge. You weren't kidding. It's what, like
Right.
500 million pages.
It's 503 pages.
Yeah.
So I think we'll get it right. We'll get it right.
Well,
I think what they're saying is if the revocation is particular to a specific action, there's one exception for when they do this. But I'm pretty sure if you read it plainly, it says in the discretion of the consular or the Secretary of State, they can just revoke your visa.
Yeah,
After the fact, it provides exceptions.
That's pretty fascinating. I didn't know that. I mean,
Pretty
if
stiff.
that's the case,
I mean,
it's pretty severe. Yeah.
I mean,
it makes sense.
Also,
if
you
no
have
appellate process.
you have the Trump administration investigating 60 universities total and instructing the administrators of those universities that they have to comply with all of this stuff because the executive order, I guess, per the Trump administration's way of thinking is retroactive, right? I mean, this guy Khalil, I think, was involved in stuff in January.
Right.
I don't know if it was before January 20th or before the executive order was signed or after. But it is interesting if the Trump administration is going to be deporting green card holders from those who were engaged in retroactively. I wonder
Right.
if that's part of the
I think
plan.
since he's
I think
been
it
in
might be
office,
part of
this
the
is all
plan.
stopped. I mean, because
No,
everybody
it's still
knows.
happening. It's still happening at Barnard.
At the level that it happened,
At Barnard, they were hanging effigies of one of the deans.
Wow.
They were distributing leaflets in classes, disrupting classes, preventing people from getting to classes. The NYPD was called in. There was a bomb threat so that they had to evacuate the whole building. I mean, it's pretty insane at Barnard. And when you look at the press conferences, there's plenty of student activists with accents, and you wonder why,
what are you thinking?
on what circumstance are you here?
Right,
Is
right.
that gonna
Where are you from?
gonna stick? Yeah. So it certainly has been continuing in New York at Columbia specifically. I don't know as much
I think
at the other
everything else is
schools.
pretty much. I don't think it's
Yeah,
nearly as prevalent
but you
as it
also
was.
have the administrators of a lot of these schools saying that they're not going to cooperate. You have the administrators at Columbia anyway saying they're not going to cooperate with ICE or DHS or anybody trying to come find these
I wonder how that's going to work out for him.
Yeah. And it's undergrads, it's grad students who are, of course, adults. I mean, I think this guy is like 27, 28 years
Right.
old.
I am still trying to find the page.
The subsection.
Yeah, it's just massive.
It's not easy to
I
find.
think it's 500 plus pages.
The particulars of it, honestly, they're not really all that important to me. Like, there is a legal means to do this. How it's done, whether they get a hearing or not, whatever, I don't care. If they're spouting anti-American rhetoric, right, and they're calling for violence or
And the
calling
destruction
for
of
action
Western
against,
civilization.
and
This is
calling for
real.
hold on, calling for action against the police, calling for if they're occupying private property and stuff like that, get them out.
Impeding people
Send
to
them
get
home.
to school.
Send them back. If you are here as a guest on a green card, on a visa like that. So if you're an anti-American, beat it. Like, send them the hell out of here.
Well, this
we
guy
should
has only
not
been in the
make
country
room
for
for
a
people
year.
that are just going to come into this country and try to subvert the United States.
He was only here since December 2023.
Boy, the
which I thought
mentality
was
of-
interesting because he finished grad school. He finished grad school in January or December of this year. So what's crazy to me is, how do you finish grad school in a year? I went to grad school at Columbia. It took me 3 years to get through it, and that was art school. I mean, so it's not like it was rigorous.
I mean, send them home.
The mentality of people who have green cards nowadays. I mean, back in the day, I hate to say some back in the day old school stuff, but people figured that they were guests of our country. They would act on their best behavior. They wouldn't be, the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. And now these people are just doing, literally just, unbelievable, criminal stuff.
Libby is right.
Am I right?
You are correct. So there is judicial review in this particular case. So, Section 237A1B is specifically about deportation.
Mm-hmm.
And if what they're saying is, if the revocation of visa is the sole reason for a deportation, there will be a hearing. You were correct.
So
And this is why they're actually having the review right now where the judge has put a halt to it.
let him have the hearing.
If there was any other reason where the individual, like if this guy, if they had him on a crime, of any crime.
Crimes, for sure.
But that could be like jaywalking.
Yeah.
Then there would be no hearing at all. But basically what Trump said was national security issues. I believe the State Department said that he was engaging in activities aligned with Hamas, which I reject
You
wholeheartedly.
realize I'm going to clip the part where you said Libby is right, and I'm
Absolutely,
just
you
going to post just that forever and ever.
You absolutely should. And that's why we read it.
Yeah.
Okay, because Libby was correct the whole time.
I
was wrong.
had a Tim is, it might be wrong. Bubba was right today in the green room earlier. We were talking about.
I hope it's on tape because.
Well, no, there was no tape. There's no tape of it.
We were recording, but was it before the recording?
It might have been during the recording. It was during the talking about the tip situation, and you said you may be correct if you were talking in the context that I was speaking about.
This is actually important. No tax on tips. Bubba
Right.
brought up means super chats may be tax exempt.
right.
Oh.
And I said, however, it's a gratuity is. You know what it is. It's self-explanatory. It's money after the fact.
Right.
You're not getting anything for doing it. However, for us with Super Chats, there is an expectation, a probability that we read what you have to say.
Right.
So if you're watching right now and you put in a Super Chat, the expectation is Tim is going to be reading the Super Chats, and I'm basically paying for that to occur.
That real estate.
That's not that's not a tip.
Right.
However, you pointed out for your show, when you do Super Chats, you don't read any messages. You
No.
say thank you.
To Jim
That's a
McGillicuddy,
tip.
thank you. Yeah.
That is a tip. They're giving you money with no expectation of what's called legal consideration.
Right.
Meaning you're tax exempt on all that.
So I'm looking forward to that. I hope it goes through.
That's really interesting. That opens the door to a lot. People need to understand.
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of people in the content industry. I mean,
Yep.
you know, a lot.
It's crazy how Democrats somehow are against taxes on tips because you had AOC saying that means that every job would become a tip-based job.
Great.
Yeah.
That means pay what you will.
Yeah.
And think about how that would work. I say, hey, if you want to watch our members only show, it's free. Just leave a tip. And if you don't, we won't do it again.
Right.
So it's like
I mean,
no taxes.
right. I mean, you know, you can get creative on that.
Yeah, it's almost like you tithe.
Tithe.
We'll do the uncensored
Tithe
show.
to the Timcast.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we say, like, nobody has to give us money, but if we don't make any money doing it from tips, we're not going to do it again.
right. We're not gonna be around.
Yeah, and look, we know that servers rely on tips for their income. So you are allowed to rely on tips for your income so long as nothing of value is given in exchange.
Right. Other than service.
No.
No, I mean, like as far as a server, they're just serving.
So tips come after the service is already completed.
Right. That's what I meant. I mean, as
So-
far as they're tipping you, I guess, on how well you did your job, potentially.
It's just extra money. Have
right.
fun.
Right.
There you go. Freebies.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.